Welcome everybody tuning in to Blainline TV around the world. You're watching round 2 of the New South Wales Motor Racing Championships at Winton in Victoria. So yes, we are heading out there, improved production, over 2 litre and under 2 litre cars on the circuit. I am Dan McCarthy. Alongside me, somebody who knows a lot about improved production racing. He was up at the 6 hour with improved production just a couple of weeks ago. Steve DeFries, thank you for joining me in the comms box, mate.
Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be invited with thanks to the Improved Production New South Wales Racing Club. Most of you would recognise the name and the voice. Have been a hallmark of improved production in Victoria for the last several seasons, so it was very appreciated to get a bit of a gong and come up and support the New South Wales guys as they kickstart their club championship here at Winton Motor Raceway for the very first time, almost as far as I can see from the record books. And speaking of record books, we've got another record here as we look at the grid, because we have an under 2 litre car on pole position for the very first time here at Winton Motor Raceway, with Ryan Gorton taking his Nissan Silvia to pole ahead of Andy Sarandis in the Evo 8 from South Australia. That's the first time there's been an over and an under on the front row in over 6 years. The last time was Jordan Cox and Ray Hislop, with Ray on pole and Jordan alongside him back in 2018. Andrew Butcher from Victoria in third place alongside Lockie McBrien, both in BMWs. Nick Agland will make it a trio of BMWs pursuing the leading 2. He starts out at 5th alongside the Toyota Corolla of Matthew Burks, with Stephen Engel, who's your defending over 2 litre champion from 2023, in 7th, ahead of the returning Danny Castro, who's been away for at least 12 years and has got a Nissan Silvia under him for this weekend. Kurt McCready, who's your defending 4-time under 2 litre champion in New South Wales, starts out of 9th alongside Brett Porter from Victoria in the bright yellow Honda Civic, with Paul Javots from Victoria behind him and Matthew Giantini in 12th place. Then we go back to Jiwei Chen, Tim Robson, Wayne Twist and Craig Caspers, Shad Hansen, Timothy Molesworth, Mark Lamore and Mark Harwa, Matthew Wildridge, Matthew Lamore, Michael Ricketts and John Markwick in the Pulsar. And toward the back of the grid we have Max Robson, Joseph Lenthal in the BMW, and the last car on there will be just waiting to see it tick over. Didn't quite get the last one that was on the list there, but we do have 27 drivers. The last one was actually Woods, who I do believe is not going to be taking the start, with some mechanical gremlins arising from practice and qualifying this morning.
18 minutes plus 1 lap ahead of us. Great field of improved production cars, as we say. So many coming over the border. It's a really interesting front row. Silvia versus Evo. Who's going to win the drag race to turn number 1? We're about to... Oh, what a start from the Evo. He's bolted. He's got 50 metres already, 100 metres already. They haven't even got to turn number 1 yet.
Massive launch from Andy Sarandis. Got the boost, and the rovers completely dialed in from the clean side of the grid and executed it perfectly. The 4-wheel drive Evo takes off towards turn 1, 2, and now on toward turn 3, leaving the Silvia of Ryan Gorton, I guess, in the dust and under some attack from Lockie McBrien, who's had a good start, moved up 1 spot into 3rd place there in the BM's number 52 BMW E46, pursued by the other 2 BMWs you see there of Andrew Butcher in the Epilepsy Foundation machine, and Nick Agland right behind him. Believe it or not, the car in 5th place is Andrew Butcher's old car from Victoria, in the hands of Nick Agland, and Butcher's had a bit of an eye on him for this weekend just to see how he goes. Didn't want to quite be shown up in his old machinery.
Silvia of Gorton is caught up around the twisty section of Winton, but look at the way that Evo accelerates. These 2 cars, you can already see on lap number 1 the way they achieve their speed so differently. It's going to make for a fascinating encounter, and that's what makes improved production so interesting to watch as well, isn't it? How they achieve their speeds differently, and we can see is, look at that, the cameraman having to zoom out. Look at the margin now, but as we get to these twisty corners, Gordon will close back up around the tight right-handers, but on the pit straight, once again, the Evo will pull a margin, and this is the difference between over 2 litres and under 2 litres. It's all to play for out there on the racetrack as we complete lap number 1. The margin, 1.1 seconds.
Certainly is. So it'll be very, very interesting now to see where the under 2 litre cars can make time on some of their other competitors as we look back to the two naturally aspirated SR20s under the Nissan Silvias, coming up and over the rise down towards turn 3. That's your defending champions, actually both defending champions on screen there. The under 2 leader of Kurt McCready, who's had a moment on the exit of turn number 3 and had to get out of the throttle. That lets Stephen Engel in the Evo 7 by and up into what would now be 7th place. And then Matthew Burks, who started in 6th, has now lost a couple of spots. He's actually missing part of the front bar assembly after a trip through the grass at turn number 1 during qualifying this morning.
Absolutely. We have to thank Crisis Transport and Logistics for making this broadcast happen with Improved Production here this weekend. And we can see that machine in particular, as you say, is just inside the top 10, but it's on for the lead in that twisty section again, as we see the number 43 car slide around the outside. In fact, I think the Lexus, is it?
Yeah, it's the Toyota Altezza there of Woods. Now, they were talking about not taking the start because they had some rather nasty mechanical gremlins this morning, and the car actually sounded rather sick going down the front straight. So they have taken a start, but there might be a reoccurrence of some of those gremlins that are going on, and he was being rounded up by, I think it was Mark Lamour there, going around the tight twisty part of the circuit. There's a 15-second penalty showing for Timothy Molesworth in the blue Toyota Celica. He's currently down the order in, was it 18th place at the moment, and that's a rather serious infringement for a 15-second penalty. Normally it's a 5 seconds for a jump start. 15 is usually something a bit more than that.
Yeah, normally it's an incident which you are solely at fault for, so not quite sure there what is the cause of that one. Fascinating New South Wales improved production. We've spoken about the classes, but there really is two classes. Unlike Victoria, there are under 2 litre cars, but there's a real strong field of both in New South Wales.
Yes, this weekend we were looking up and down the list, and it was fairly close to an even split of 50-50 overs and unders at one point. And the unders cars just slightly have it, to the point where in New South Wales they do need to have 2 grids because they do have a lot more numbers in unders that couldn't quite make it this weekend, and they do have to run those extra grids just to get make sure the capacity constraints are met. You can see on your timing graphic on the left-hand side there, the cars numbers that are highlighted in red are over 2 litres, and the cars that are highlighted in white are the unders. So it makes it a little bit easier to follow. As we can see here, heading down towards the final couple of corners, you've got Craig Caspers and Paul Javots from Victoria. They're being assaulted here by Joseph Lenthal, who's had a couple of years away and has picked himself up a BMW E36, which he's been breaking in over the last couple of weeks. And this is its first proper hit out. Before he managed to acquire that car, he last raced 4 years ago in a Mazda RX-7.
Yeah, and it was a big late braking move, fired it up the inside, now sliding out sideways at turn number 2. Lenthal pushing really hard early on in this improved production race. Didn't sound quite right in qualifying under brakes. It was squeaking and making a few odd noises under brakes, but that was the reason why he qualified quite far down the field. But moving forwards at a vast rate of knots in this one as he catches up to the machine ahead. Is he going to go around the outside? We saw a move there in XLs earlier on today, but not able to do so in improved production. He'll swing it up the inside here, though.
Yep, up the inside. But Craig Caspers is quite a wait to that. Late braked just as late as Joseph did, and holding on to 10th place here. So this is the battle over 10th with the RX-7, 11th for Lenthal and Javots in 12th. Oh, that's super tight. Then a little bit of minor contact, I think, just at the apex of the corner there. Not quite enough room for Lenthal to wriggle the number 8 machine through at turn number 9. And Javots glued to the rear bumper. Oh, check out the air time for Lenthal. The left-hand side tyres getting plenty of air underneath them as he clipped the inside curb at the very tricky turn number 10. Asking a lot of the car here.
Top 2 pretty close still. The margin actually came down on that last lap to 1.4 seconds.
This is on board with Matthew Burks in the Corolla. So he's currently 9th on the road. Just ahead of him, Kurt McCready and Danny Castro. So they're both in unders, and they were both very well matched in qualifying this morning. They didn't have much for Ryan Gorton, but they were definitely equally matched, only with about 2 tenths or so separating there. Kurt getting a little bit too greedy on the outside of turn 3 and kicking up a bit of the dust, but manages to hold on and not lose too much ground to Castro. But this is the real corner, isn't it, Dan? This is the one where you can make up so much time. And look at Burks. He closes in the second part of the corner, but then Sylvia just pulls away a touch, just in that little chute between turn 5 and up to turn 7, just to insulate himself from a possible attack down the inside at 7.
Absolutely. And brilliant footage there brought to us by Blendline TV in the Crisis Transport and Logistics machine. Number 82, there they go past the very slow-moving Toyota that is a lap down, but trying to get some points on the board in his class. So continuing to lap around the circuit. We're 11 minutes into this one, 7 minutes to go, so we're well over halfway now. And we're still seeing PBs from many competitors further down the field. But this is a closing battle now between these three as they catch up to the white machine ahead. Can't quite see who that is.
That's the Castro number, number 26 there.
26.
Of Danny Castro, as I said, he's been away for the better part of 12 years. Had life, had a family, as we all do. You know, family things and businesses, things come into play. It's good to have him back out there. He always stayed in touch with the club and definitely wanted to get back out there one day at some point and do some racing. He has got his hands full with Kurt. There's some parts of the circuit where Kurt's definitely got the edge and some parts where Danny's got a little bit more speed. So it's a bit of and what they call an elastic gap at the moment. It gets bigger at some parts of the track and it gets smaller at other parts of the track.
Certainly is. They are all in the under 2 litres class, all three of these, Castro, McCready and Burks, and they all set PBs on that last lap through. So good laps coming in, 33.5, 33.7, 33.8. So really close between the trio. And then we look back at something a bit different.
We've got two very, very different cars here. We've got the Escort of Matthew Wildridge, the number 37 machine, and he's being pursued by Shad Hassan in the number 75 RX-7. Shad was one of the competitors that, like several in the field, that went up to the Bathurst 6 Hour a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately for him, ended up with his RX-8 being pretty badly damaged in an incident down at the Chase and had to rebuild that car so he could compete in Formula RX-8. The other weekend at Sydney Motorsport Park, he's got the RX-7 back out and going along nicely for improved production this weekend. Here's another under 2 litre battle here. You've got Jiwei Chen, who is pursuing Tim Robson in the Civic. So actually 2 Civics, plenty of Civics in the field this weekend. It's actually good to see the different makes and models of the Honda Civics. You've got the sort of the earlier generation models, the hatchbacks. In Tim's case, it's more of a sedan type of a body shape. So the Hondas go quite well here. It's been historically always been a good track for the Honda machinery.
You sort of made mention of it there. Oh, that's a lot of smoke.
McCready's got smoke, and he's got some front end damage, and he's had to pull off. He came off. It was a bit of an issue there, heading out of turn number 4 and up through the sweeper at 5. Smoke billowing from the front right corner of the number 96, and he is out of business. So not a good start to proceedings for Kurt for the weekend. He came into the weekend on 97 race starts, so was looking forward to chalking up 100 by the end of the weekend, as Brett Porter in the number 5 Civic has a bit of a moment touring the grass on the approach to turn number 7. Here's a replay from what happened to Kurt. Actually, he had smoke well and truly before he came off. He had smoke from turn number 3, and that's actually coming out more out the bottom of the car before it came out the side of the car. So to me, that looks like some sort of engine related issue. Transmission, oil, or something's not gone according to plan there for car 96.
The fact the car was sliding around the corner and the fact it was coming from directly underneath the middle of the machine, that looked pretty bad out there on the circuit, that's for sure. But it looks like it's not put too much fluid down, or else we'd have cars firing off left, right and centre. So fortunately, I don't think it's too substantial down there on the racetrack at what is a pretty treacherous corner. We've seen it catch out the very best in the business. I remember, just to say it, there is a car running wide, so there might be a bit of fluid there on the circuit. But yeah, it's caught out the best in the business. I remember Scott McLaughlin firing off there the one year. So it's, caught out the very best in the country. I was going to say, though, the point I was making before the smoke started billowing from the machine was the incredible variety that the New South Wales category have. In Victoria, it's with tracks like Sandown and Phillip Island, it's dominated by big V8 machines, but in New South Wales there's a real variety, not many V8 machines at all.
Very few. There's only a handful that I'm aware of, and David Haynes and Ben Sheedy. Ben was actually the best placed New South Welshman at the 6 Hour Support Act. He was 6th overall for the weekend. I mean, that's kind of the track if you're doing improved production where you need the V8.
Yes,
There's the Mountain Straight and Conrod Straight, but in a lot of cases, a lot of drivers in New South Wales, they need to have a car that performs well, because a lot of the likes of Sydney Motorsport Park have all those different types of medium speed corners where the grip is key. All right, we're getting word through that there is 2 laps remaining at the current moment in time. And again, a big thank you to Crisis Transport and Logistics for sponsoring the weekend for Improved Production in New South Wales, the opening round of the Club Championship for 2024. And up at the top part of the circuit, this is turn 9, with Wildridge being pursued by the number 13 of Giantini, who's had a couple of mechanical gremlins as well so far this weekend. Car came to a stop partway through qualifying, managed to get it back to the lane, and has managed to get it going again, so hopefully they've identified that problem. They're going on quite nicely at the moment. And this is the battle a bit further down the order. This is for the 19th and 20th place.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's fiercely fought even back there. Such a great field coming over the border. Molesworth's, I've just seen, has also got a 15-second penalty.
Yeah, he's the only one.
I haven't heard what that one is for, so a couple of 15-second penalties that we haven't heard reasoning behind, but I'm sure you'll be onto that this afternoon, and you'll deliver us the news early in the morning.
Yeah, the other one is Woods, who's got the 15-second penalty as well. Molesworth was the one we called a little bit earlier, but he still don't know what that was for at this stage. Now, this margin, it was 1.8 seconds. It came back down to 1.4. It looks a little bit less than that, but I don't think there's enough time for Ryan Gordon to make up the room, because we are officially, I'm told, on the last lap, I believe. They're holding out a last lap board at the last corner. At the Pulsar of Michael Ricketts needs to get out the way there of the leaders coming through, and Andy Sarandis and Ryan Gort managed to get through. Then there's the lap traffic, and then Lockie McBrien in third.
Definitely cost him a couple of tenths. Just on the apex, couldn't quite attack as he would like to, and you can see Gordon is right there. He'll pretty much have closed the margin down by the exit of this hairpin, but this is where the Evo comes into its own, and it's just a case of bringing it home from here, although there's a bit of action just up the road, but I don't think it will play a factor with just a couple of corners to go.
No, just 2 corners left, flashing the lights, giving some warning that the lap traffic that the race leader is coming through. And for Andy, this is a tick on his bucket list. He's always tried to get over to Winton to contest a round, but the stars have never aligned with all the commitments that he has in South Australia. Well, he's here, and he's going to take a win, the first race of the weekend for New South Wales Improved Production. Congratulations, Andy, with Ryan Gordon not too far behind in second, so he might have something for Andy tomorrow. And Lockie McBrien bringing the BMW home for third place. Andrew Butcher will claim 4th. Nick Agland will claim 5th. And then we're on board with Matthew Burks, who has moved up to 7th with the unfortunate demise of the number 96 of Kurt McCready. So that lets Danny Castro off the hook with a 6th place. That's a good return to the racing circuit for him. And then Burks will be home in 7th. Joseph Lenthal, who started at the back, and the reason he started at the back was because his transponder wasn't working in qualifying, so that's why he was off the rear. So he's driven all the way up to 8th place, so he might have something in store for the leaders tomorrow, if starting out of 8th. Paul Javots brings the Civic home in 9th, and this is the battle for 10th. Craig Caspers just trying to hold off the very fast-charging Brett Porter, who was the round winner here in IPRA Vic about a month ago. And he comes home in 11th ahead of Stephen Engel, who faded quite late there. He was sitting comfortably, I think, up in 6th place. He was ahead of Danny Castro, so Castro's picked up a spot there as well, and everybody behind gained an extra spot. So I'm not quite sure what has happened to the number 36 Evo 7.
I saw a car. It was an Evo 7 that came into the pits just before turn 1 on the final lap. So mechanical issue. Seeing that car fail to greet the...
he's falling down the order, actually, so he hasn't finished the race. So that's a shame, because he did have some issues in one of the races at the 6 hour. Turned out to be a fairly straightforward fix, but for the defending champions in both over 2 litre and under 2 litre, this is not the start that they would have been hoping for the season. Both DNFs.
Absolutely, yeah, not good at all. There are the results then. So Andy taking the win by 2.2 seconds in the end. Ryan Gordon dominating the under 2 litres class, over 20 seconds clear of the next best in under 2 litres. That was Danny Castro. But we go back to third Lachlan McBrien, Andrew Butcher, Nick Agland, then, as you say, Daniel Castro, Matthew Burks coming home. That's the car we ride on board with in 7th position ahead of Joseph Lenthal, as you say. Phenomenal recovery. And then Paul Grigwaltz and Craig Katsparis rounding out the top 10.
Brett Porter over the page, home in 11th, ahead of Tim Robson in the Civic, ahead of Jiwei Chen, or Gary, as he's I've been told is what he likes to be called in the lane. Wayne Twist and Timothy Molesworth, so that's, I'm not sure if that's pre or post the 15-second time penalty. So he came home there in what was 17th, ahead of Matthew Giantini, and then Wildridge in 19th. And then Ricketts, who was 20th, and then you had 21st, actually it's showing us 21st, Michael Ricketts there instead of 20th on our timing. And then John Markwick, Max Robson, Mark Lamore, and Peter Woods, despite the fact he was touring out there with likely to be some mechanical dramas, he finished 2 laps down in 25th. Kurt McCready, a big non-finisher. Matthew Lamore, in the Volvo, a non-finish.
Matthew Burks, we're here at Winton. You've had qualifying and your first race for Improved Production today. Take us through how your qualifying went and how your first race went today.
Yeah, qualifying went well, pace-wise. I qualified 6th outright and 2nd in under 2 litre. But unfortunately I made a little mistake at turn 1, which caused a red flag for the session. But yes, so, and race 1 was great. I didn't get the best start, but I was quite happy. We've had some reliability issues at Bathurst at the start of the year, so I was really, the goal was to finish the race. So I came in 3rd in under 2 litre, and I was very happy with that. So.
And so this is your first round of the season as well, isn't it? So you had a bit of a pre-season hit out at the 6 hour, but this is the first round of the season. How are you feeling so far for the opening of the season?
Oh yeah, I'm feeling great. So it's all about points in our category. You've got to finish races. So to finish the first race is a good start. And it's the first time at Winton, so I'm really enjoying it. Just got to watch out for the curbs.
What are you going to be doing overnight coming into tomorrow to get the best you can get out of your 2 races tomorrow?
The car was suffering with a little bit of understeer. The front tyres went off during that race, and so I didn't quite have the pace to answer to Danny Castro. So I'm going to play with the alignment tonight and try to get a little bit more pace, so hopefully we can give him a run tomorrow.
Great to hear from Burks, and we are riding on board. Welcome to Winton. Round 2 of the New South Wales Motor Racing Championships. Thank you very much for joining us on Blendline TV, wherever you are around the world. Yes, Winton in Victoria. Bit odd to have round number 2 of New South Wales Series here, but great to have them all travel down south, 5 hours from Sydney. Here is the grid for Improved Production, race number 2 of their weekend. I'm Dan McCarthy. Alongside me is Steve DeFries, and I'll let you, Steve, go through the grid.
Thank you, Dan. We've got Andy Sarandis from South Australia in the Evo 8 on the pole after yesterday's first up win, ahead of Ryan Gordon, who's the lead under 2 litre Nissan Silvia here this weekend. Then a pair of BMWs, Lockie McBrien from New South Wales and Andrew Butcher from Victoria, both in BMW M3 E36s in 3rd and 4th. They're ahead of Nick Agland, who is also in a BMW M3, just an older generation E36. Then you've got Danny Castro in the Nissan Silvia in 6th. He's in a naturally aspirated 2 litre car, so he's in unders as well. Just ahead of Matthew Burks, who we were riding on board with, the Toyota Corolla AE82, out of 7th place. Joseph Lenthal in a BMW M3 as well, out of position 8 for car number 8. A couple more of the Victorians that have journeyed up from Melbourne this weekend here. Paul Javots and Craig Caspers out of 9th and 10th. Brett Porter from Victoria as well there in 11th. So there's a couple of Civics in 9th and 11th. And then make it 3 Civics because Tim Robson in the number 32 machine will start from 12th. Ahead of Ji Wei Chen. Wayne Twist in the little BMW E46. Mark Hawa and Shad Hassan both in Mazda RX-7s. Then Timothy Molesworth, Matthew Giantini, Matthew Wildridge in the Ford Escort, and Michael Ricketts in 20th in the Nissan Pulsar. Ahead of another Pulsar of John Markwick, Max Robson, and then Mark Lamore. Peter Woods was an unfortunate retirement from yesterday's race. It looks like the car's not taking any further part in proceedings. It's had some misfiring issues. Stephen Engel, who is the defending champion in over 2 litre, had a vacuum line come off under the bonnet yesterday and a little bit of a brake drum with a long brake pedal, but he's managed to get that rectified, so watch for the Evo 7 coming from the rear of the grid. Matthew Lamore, he had a couple of brake dramas as well yesterday, but then the big casualty, and we do not believe that they'll be taking any further part in the weekend, is the defending under 2 litre champion, Kurt McCready, who was looking for 5 in a row to kickstart his campaign this weekend, let go with an oil fitting that came off the car, and they've elected not to conduct the repairs for that at the circuit. So they're going to take that car home, get that turned around, get ready for Nationals a bit later this year. So not a good start for the defending champions in 2024, Dan.
No, not at all. It's quite funny. So many New South Wales people come to Victoria, but it's the South Australian that starts from pole and has made an unbelievable start once again with the all-wheel drive. Remarkable. Up comes one of the BMWs into second position.
Oh, Craig Caspers! Big lock-up. Had a major lock-up and made some contact with Andrew Butcher there. That's 2 Victorians unfortunately getting together. They both might be out of this race. Big mistake from the Mazda RX-7 pilot there. Casper the Ghost, we call him. Well, that was almost like a ghost, because look at what it's done to the front of the Epilepsy Foundation number 59. The left wheel has completely seized up and is not turning, so Butcher straight to the infield. Caspers has tried to get it into the old pit complex as the race roars on, and McBrien, who had the better launch from the second row of the grid, tried to have a little bit of a look at Andy Sarandis down at turn number 7. He probably realises that if there's an opportunity to make a pass, you've got to get it done now before any flags or safety cars come out. It looks like they might be able to pull that car in without the need to put out the full course caution. There is the recovery crew. They're just going to back it up and pull the number 83 into the old pit complex, and that's a very smart bit of work.
Certainly is, and that should be cleared before the cars come around to complete the first lap. So brilliant heads-up thinking from Kasparis and also from the officials to get that out the way. No safety car required, and also where Butcher's parked the car is well out of harm's way. So we are able to stay green, which is great news. And Sarandis, 1.7 second lead already at the end of lap number 1. What a fantastic field of improved production cars here this weekend. They just keep coming through. There's so many of them. Engel, I've just seen 20-second penalty for the car in 12th position at the end of lap number 1.
Well, that's gone up because I saw 5 on the radar for him a few seconds ago, which means that's a jump start. But then to add another 15 seconds onto that, he must have crossed the blend line and hit exit, because there was a couple of drivers that got slapped with a 15-second penalty for just that offence yesterday afternoon. And we have a look here at the club president, Mark Lamore, in the little Renault. Let's have a look here at turn 1. Here's the replay. Joseph Lenthal had to put 2 wheels in the grass there, I saw, and then this is completely unsighted. Look for the Mazda here. Oh, big front left lock-up and side-to-side contact, right-hand side of Caspers into the left-hand side of Butcher. He wouldn't have known he was coming.
There you go, 36 start penalty and the blend line penalty.
There you go. 5 seconds for the jump, 15 seconds for crossing the pit line, blend line at the exit of the pit lane.
that's a big double whammy in 20 seconds. Will absolutely slaughter you in a race that goes for less than 18 minutes when it's actually green. On the track at the moment, so we're looking at Engel. So he's continuing the march despite having the 20-second penalty, having a look at Wayne Twist. And he's going to have a look again at turn number 12. Can't make it stick this time through, but he is right there, right on the tail as they exit turn number 12. Pulls out of the draft and straight through. That Evo's got some poke.
Yeah, I was talking to Steve this morning just to talk to him about how he was going to tackle the start. The four-wheel drive cars, they all have some different sweet spots. For the Evo, it's sort of in that 4,000 to 5,000 RPM range is where the launch is, and we've seen some other cars that launch at a little bit lower rate than that. So you've got to get that timing right, otherwise the car will just go into a bog and it just will not launch properly. So if it's not in the right sweet spot, it will not get off the line very, very well. Let's have a look at a replay here. This is down at turn number 3 and 4. Oh, he was off the circuit, Brett Porter, and not sure if he did that all on his own, but he had to come back on quite safely there. And quite steadily, because it is a fair old drop off the edge of the circuit there between turns 4 and 5. He's come back on behind Mark Harwer in the red RX-7. We said there's 2 of them, or 3 of them here this weekend. Mark in the red one, Shad Hassan in the white one, and then the purple or and silver one, which is, of course, in the old pit lane complex belonging to Craig Caspers. Here we go, the Honda Civic with Brett Porter looking for a way past Mark Harwer down into turn number 10. He couldn't quite get that done. Yeah, the flame on the flame lick on the overrun there, down the downshift, heading down into turn number 10 for the number 3 Donut Garage entry, and manages to hold off the much more nimbler number 5 of Brett Porter. Oop, there's the other RX-7 off in the background. That is, of course, Shad Hassan, and he did that in qualifying yesterday, I believe, as well, and has managed to get it back out onto the track. Was there a car I just saw diving for the pit lane there in the back of shot as well? And saw a yellow, there's actually, there was a yellow, the yellow flag was out, and it possibly is for this car, and that's why I could see it there. That is Matthew Wildridge. Yeah, have a look at the front right-hand wheel versus the front left-hand wheel. That's some sort of suspension failure, or something's gone wrong there. He's trying to get that car out, but I don't think he realises what's going on the front 2 corners of that car.
I think he thinks he's got one wheel in the gravel, and that's why it's tracking weirdly.
Yep, there it was. It was like a failure at that point in time. Came on, avoided Shad Hassan quite well, but then the car just went straight on. 2 wheels pointing 2 directions. It will do that. And out of business is the number 37 Ford Escort.
That's a shame. Brilliantly presented machine. Can't go wrong with a Ford Escort, can you? As we see Porter continue the march forwards. Yep, he's overtaken the number 3 of Hauer. So continues to march forwards. We saw that cut through turn 4. Most of the time you get a penalty for cutting the racetrack, but in that instance certainly lost positions rather than gain them. So finished yesterday's race in 11th. That move has moved him up to 13th in this one. Was as low as really at the back end of the teens, just on the fringe of the 20th position. So made good positions up since then. That lap 1 excursion at this corner just here, turn 4.
That's right. So this is a bit further up the field. So Ryan Gorton in the blue Nissan Silvia, he's currently holding down 3rd place overall and the lead in under 2 litre at the moment. And he's being pursued by another blue car there, which is the number 57 of Nick Aglin. There's Joseph Lenthal, which is car number 8. He's moved up to 5th. And then Matthew Burks, who's been carrying the onboard camera for us this weekend, has moved up to 6th. So he had a fairly good qualifying. And then, as he said in his interview before the race, he slipped back off the start, had to recover, and he's now moved himself back up to 6th place on the road. So this is turn 9. Don't want to get too greedy on the power and understeer off the circuit. And then down here to turn 10, which is a bit more of a 90-degree corner than you think. You've got to be very patient, use all that little bit of the exit road there on the outside before you can get maximum power down here to the final 2 corners on the circuit.
Bottom right of the corner, have a crack. He's certainly having a crack, isn't he, out there on the racetrack at the moment, pushing 100%. And the Crisis Transport and Logistics sponsored machine flying out there last time through. Set his PB, a 1:33.0, which is faster than Lenthal ahead. But Lenthal himself has had a lot of recovering to do in this particular race meeting. Qualified at the back, I think you said transponder problem.
Yeah, didn't. A transponder wasn't working in qualifying, so didn't register a time and had to start plumb last and drove all the way through to 8th place yesterday. So he's up to 5th in a car that he's still coming to grips with. And, you know, we're following Burks before, and it said have a crack, and he actually did need to have a crack because Danny Castro behind him is doing exactly the same thing, have a crack, and their lap times were almost identical last time around. There was only 0.03 of a second difference between them, so have a crack he must do. So Stephen Engels managed to find his way a bit further up the order. There he goes. He is currently running in 8th place, albeit with that 20-second penalty still hanging over his head, just ahead of Paul Javots in the number 45 Honda Civic. And then Tim Robson, we just saw go through. He's managed to find his way into the top 10. As we go back to another one of the Civics, actually 2 Victorians here. Brett Porter trying to make a pass on Wayne Twist. There's no room at the end there, Brett. You've got to be a little bit more patient. Wait for the corner exit here. It's all about using your advantage where you know you can use your advantage in improved production. We see this for a lot of the faster cars, that, you know, your V8s and things like that. You've got to know where you can make your pace stick, and Brett's done it round the outside at turn 10, which is quite a brave move. But the much more nimbler and lighter Honda Civic had the ability to go round the outside of the slightly heavier BMW there and use its weight advantage to good effect. And he now leaves Wayne Twist to come under assault from another one of the under 2 litre Civics in Jiwa Chen.
Very different Civics from completely different decades. But yeah, have achieved their speed in much the same way. But Jiwen doing well in this one, sitting in 13th, just on the tail of Twist. A couple of familiar names to those in Victoria.
Yep, certainly is, and good to have some of the Victorian guys down here, not only driving, but also good to see them in the paddock, not only supporting the Vics, but coming up just to support improved production in general. I did see Brad Ross and a couple of others running around the paddock this morning, so it's good to have them here to support the category as a whole. And good to see them getting down and dirty, getting on the tools as well, and helping everybody else as well. So up into turn 7, the drivers go through. Car number 3, which we're keeping an eye out for as well on the list. We're getting some reports there. It might be a little bit of smoke. That's for Mark Harwer, which is the RX-7 just in shot here. Let's just keep a bit of an eye on it, see if there's anything emitting from the back of the machine. Yeah, there is a little bit of a small haze there. I can't say it's significant at this point in time. Only seems to be when the car is turning or under braking. There it is, just comes out again there. It's very, very faint to see, but it's there.
I've seen worse not have to serve a pit lane penalty to get it fixed or whatever, so I think that should be fine. It's probably just all the smoke coming after the flames.
That too, that too. Now, some lap traffic for our race leader, Andy Sarandis, getting past John Markwick up at turn 7 and 8, and car looks really well balanced, really well suited to this circuit. Good drive off, leaving plenty of margin for error, I can see as well. Not using all the exit on turn number 9. Let's have a look what he does here at turn number 10. No, staying well clear of the curbs as well. So he's obviously found a sweet spot where this car wants to operate, and that means keep it on the black stuff. Don't use the curbs as aggressively as some of the other drivers are, although he did a little bit there. Got a little bit of, get a bit close to putting some air under the right side tyres there. And 36, which is Stephen Engel, has had an off-track excursion and comes back onto the circuit around turn number 5. So he's dropped a spot there to Paul Javots. He's dropped a spot to Robson, Porter, Twist, Chen and Harwer. So he's dropped a plethora of positions after being off the road. So his unfortunate bad start to season 2024 continues. And in improved production land, it's very, very difficult to get the points back when you have a DNF. They are quite costly in a field that is this close and this, I guess, varied as well. You can see Lockie McBrien, I think at the moment, looks like he's going to take over the points lead, I would imagine, in over 2 litre for the weekend with 2 really good results. Third yesterday and currently second overall on the road for the New South Wales Championship. Andy Sarandis will get the round overall as it stands right now, but we don't expect Andy to contest the remainder of the New South Wales Championship. So when the series returns to Sydney Motorsport Park in a little while, they will be the ones that will be keeping an eye out for if they can maintain their advantage at the top of the standings. So Sydney Motorsport Park, the next round on the 25th of May, so little on a month from now.
Yeah, so Sydney Motorsport Park, round 2. Sydney Motorsport Park, a day-night event. Round number 3, that's Saturday, the 22nd of June. Then it's the Nationals. That's at Hidden Valley this year, July 19 to 21. Round 4 for New South Wales, back at Sydney Motorsport Park again in early August. And then round 5, date and venue to be confirmed. They expect that decision to be made prior to July, so maybe an exciting announcement there for the final round of the year. But starting here and then 3 at Sydney Motorsport Park, and we're hearing that our race leader Sarandis has begun the final lap of the motor race.
Yep, certainly has, and he's got a really healthy advantage out in front. Check it out on the timing graphic there. It's 9.7 seconds, while we look on at Tim Robson in the beautifully presented number 32 machine. Here is the race leader now, up at the top section of the circuit, half the final lap to go. A little bit of lap traffic to contend with. It's had a lot more lap traffic in this race compared to yesterday afternoon. And the number 99 from South Australia now down the inside. Is it down the inside? No, not quite far up enough. Just thought a little bit better of it and used the advantage on the exit of turn 10 to soar past Matthew Giantini in the little Honda Civic and up to the final 2 corners. So grab your chalkboard, mark another one off for Andy Sarandis. 2 from 2 this weekend. Didn't get the outright pole and not quite close enough to his South Australian counterpart Chris Brown's ultimate lap record. If it was going to fall, it was going to fall this morning, and he's come up about 4 tenths or so short of breaking that lap record. So we'll see if he can do that a bit later on this afternoon, although we did say the pick of the conditions was going to be this morning. But it's a dominant win by 9.2 seconds ahead of the BMWs of Lockie McBrien and then Ryan Gorton, who had a very sluggish start off the front row, coming home for 3rd. So he'll share the 2nd row of the grid with Nick Agland for the 3rd and final race of the weekend this afternoon. Lenthal home in 5th. Then Burks in 6th, Castro in 7th. Paul Javots will come home for 8th, and ahead of Tim Robson. And then Brett Porter on your screen here is the last car in the 10. It looked like he just had a little bit of a moment coming out of turn number 10. The car maybe didn't want to put its power down, but he is going to come home and finish inside the 10. So the last 3 cars inside the top 10, all Honda Civics of various guises. Ahead of Wayne Twist and Jiwa Chen. Stephen Engel is just going to outdrag Mark Harwood to the line, but he's going to have that 20-second penalty applied to him, and that's going to drop him comprehensively down the order.
Absolutely, it will. Here are the results then. Andy Sarandis taking the win from Lachlan McBrien. Ryan Gorton, 2nd yesterday, 3rd today, but importantly for him, taking the under 2 litre class honours once again. Nick Agland holding on to 4th, ahead of Joseph Lenthal, who just beat Matthew Burks home, the man we're riding on board with. He came home really strong in that one. Lenthal, though, holding on by just 1 second. Beyond that, Daniel Castro, Paul Grigoltz, Tim Robson and Brett Porter rounding out the top 10.
Over the page we go. Wayne Twist and Jiwa Chen came across the line nose to tail, ahead of Stephen Engel and Mark Harwood, who came across the line nose to tail as well. Ahead of Timothy Molesworth and Shad Hassan, they were the drivers that were on the lead lap at the end of the day, and then those that were a lap down or greater Matthew Giantini, Mark Lamore and Michael Ricketts and Matthew Lamore. So a series of under 2 litre cars there, along with John Markwick and Max Robson. And then the non-finishers, some big ones in there. So Matthew Wildridge in the Escort with the 2 wheels pointing opposite directions, and then the contact between Andrew Butcher and Craig Caspers. And then the last 2 there, Kurt McCready and Peter Woods, they didn't start this one. Who started on the front row for all the races this weekend, and he's going to do so again, looking to clean sweep the weekend's racing. So Andy Sarandis in the Evo 8 off the front row with Lockie McBride alongside him, who took advantage of Ryan Gorton's unfortunate tardy start in race number 2 this morning. So Ryan finished 3rd, and Nick Agland in the JKL Real Estate BMW will start in 4th. Ahead of Joseph Lenthal, returning to the series after a couple of years away, and Matthew Burks in the Toyota Corolla, who's been carrying our onboard camera this weekend for Crisis Transport and Logistics. And there we go, as he's working his way up towards the sweeper. The 7th and 8th, Danny Castro and Paul Javots. And then Tim Robson and Brett Porter over the page here in 9th and 10th, with Wayne Twist and Jiwa Chen, 11th and 12th. Good mix as always in Improved Production. Mark Harwa in the RX-7 ahead of the Celica of Timothy Molesworth. Stephen Engel, who's recovering through the field after a unfortunate little mechanical gremlin in race 1. He drove from the back to finish 15th ahead of Shad Hassan in the RX-7 there. So that's the white RX-7 as opposed to Mark Harwa's red RX-7, a couple of spots further up the grid. Matthew Giantini in the number 13 will start 17th ahead of the club president Mark Lamore, with Michael Ricketts and Matthew Lamore starting 19th and 20th. John Markwick in the Pulsar ahead of Max Robson and Matthew Wildridge, who had that little unfortunate incident down at the last couple of corners where it broke a stub axle and both wheels were pointing the opposite directions, but it looks like they've hopefully got that car fixed and back out. The big casualties from race number 2 this morning, Craig Caspers with a big lock-up into the opening couple of corners and unfortunately took out Andrew Butcher in the number 59 BMW. The damage too extensive on both those cars to repair here at the track, so they're not going to be taking any further part in this one. And even though he was listed, Kurt McCready has taken the number 96 home to New South Wales to get that car fixed from its oil dilemmas from race 1 yesterday afternoon. As Dan McCarthy returns to the box to join me for this one, Improved Production has delivered this weekend, I think, Dan. It's been some great clean racing, save for the couple of small little minor contact incidents like we saw in race 2 this morning. It's been a very, very spirited and very, very fair battle between everybody this weekend, but clearly Andy Sarandis a cut above the rest right now.
Yeah, certainly is. Gets great initial launch off the line, and then from there, the others struggling to keep up. Well, for his side, we'll be hoping to see that again. Just moments away from the start of this one, the final race in New South Wales Improved Production this weekend here at the nation's action track, Sandown Motor Raceway. Green flag at the back.
Not Sandown, Winton.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
You're thinking a little bit too far ahead. This is Winton Motor Raceway, not Sandown, as the lights go out for the final time. And a good launch from Sarandis yet again. Not the best launch, but that's probably still a good one for him over Lockie McBride, who got just as equally a good reaction time. And Ryan Gorton very quickly to the inside here of Nick Agland in the 57. So he'll hold 3rd. The top 5 as they started on their way to turn number 3 already. There's the 26 of Castro. He's actually picked up a spot over Matthew Burks in the Corolla at the start here, ahead of Paul Javots. And it looks like Tim Robson's had a fairly handy start too, ahead of Wayne Twist. And Stephen Engel might have picked up 3 or spots or so off the start line there. So all the way and running in Improved Production up towards the sweeper, through the kink at 6. And now the heavy braking zone for 9. Gorton sides down the inside of McBride at turn 7, who had to leave space at the last minute. Can he now hold it right around the outside at turn 8? He can't get it done, and McBride covers going into 9.
Good battling up the front of this one. They're actually in two different classes. Over 2 litre from McBride, under 2 litre from Gordon, but he's taken it to them all weekend long so far. The BMW in 4th, though, has just been handed a 5-second penalty. I imagine that's for a start infringement, a jump start, or whether or not he was inside the box. Nevertheless, a penalty for him that'll be applied at the end of the race. That's good news for the man behind, Lenthal in the other, or another BMW, and there is confirmation of that penalty.
Certainly is. As you said, it'll either be for being outside the box or it'll be for jumping a little bit too early and being a little bit too eager. As we're on board with Matthew Burks here, giving chase to the 26 of Castro. Makes a lot of its time throughout the top part of the circuit. Not so good on the straights. As you can see here, Danny just pulls away, exiting turn number 2, opens up the margin, and then plunges down the hill into turn 3, almost flat through turn 4. You can hold it nicely through here, use a bit of the exit curb, and now we're going to start to get to the part of the circuit where the Corolla will make its time. So the gap will shrink coming through turn 5, up to 6 and 7, and watch the margin get erased here. The car cocks its wheel, going into the right hand up as all that weight transfers to the left-hand side, and you'll see that the gap comes down quite comprehensively there and shrinks quite a lot, but then it opens back up again on the other side. Have a look there. Stephen Engels made his way up to 9th, so he started 15th, has gained 6 spots in the opening 1.5 laps. So good recovery from the defending 2023 over 2 litre champion. It's been a bit of an awkward weekend with the DNF in race 1 and having to recover from the rear to 15th in race 2. And finally, down the inside, Burks gets the job done on Castro. So he's had a good run through the top part of the circuit and got a good run out of turn number 10 and gets the move done at 11.
Great move, really good move from the man that we ride on board with, and we have to thank Crisis Transport and Logistics for bringing us the coverage of this event on Blendline TV this weekend. Without them, I don't think the coverage would have happened. So thank you very much to Crisis Transport and Logistics. But this is on a little bit further back. Porter continuing a recovery drive after a couple of issues earlier on today. Finds himself inside the top 10 and trying to overtake the over 2 litre car of Robson just ahead.
Actually, it's an under 2 litre car there as well, as we see Mark Harwer is, well, that's not the circuit. I don't know where that is. I actually think that's at the start-finish straight. I think he's heading for the pit paddock area. Yes, he is. There he goes. So it's a bit of a shame for the Donut Garage number 3, as Porter still gives chase to Tim Robson here. 2 different Honda Civics, 2 different body styles, 2 different liveries to go along with it. Brett Porter has been a bit renowned this weekend for doing a bit more lawn mowing than driving on the circuit. He's had a couple of off-track excursions and has had to recover through them all. Oh, slowing. They're going past a slow number 26 of Danny Castro, so that might be a bit more of a story to why Matthew Burks was able to get past so quickly on the last lap, as he looks like he doesn't have anything maybe beyond about 3rd gear or something going on there. He's not very fast at all, and I expect he will peel off to the pits coming out of this turn number here, or turn number 11. Chad Hassan goes through, and there goes Molesworth, goes through, and off to the left goes Castro. So it's been not a bad weekend for him up until this point. 2 really good race results in the opening 2 races after being away from the series for the better part of 12 years, but unfortunately comes to a grinding halt in race number 3.
It had been a really good return up to that point, but yeah, has come into the lane. A disappointing end to the weekend. This is the final of 3 improved production races. We're into the final races now. Every category you see are commencing their final race of the weekend. And I noticed as well, you said about the 2 Honda Civics, there's another Honda Civic behind them as well, a much newer modern Honda Civic. There it is now, going into turn number 7, right on cue.
Yep,
and
that's a GY10 car.
It is, yes, and he's coming under attack from these 2 machines on the screen at the moment.
Yep, so this is Wayne Twist, one of the Victorians that's been in the field this weekend. There's been 5 of them. 3 of them are still going. And Matthew Giantini, who's in another one of the Honda Civics, the number 13 machine there. I almost mistook it for a little Peugeot at one point when I first saw it in the paddock, because I've seen a very similar looking car in the Victorian State Series, and that's where my eyes originally went. It took me a couple of hours to adjust to the fact that it wasn't a Peugeot, that in fact it is indeed a Honda Civic. He's doing quite well to keep up with the BMW E46 here of Wayne Twist.
I was just looking down the screen to find Engel, and just as I was looking down the screen, I hear in my ear from Shane, and he says that apparently the car came to a brief stop at turn number 5, but has got going. So it's almost been a weekend from hell for the reigning champion Engel. It couldn't have been a much worse start to his title defence, as the number 13 swings to the inside, not going to make it stick. This time not close enough, but yeah, couldn't have been a worse start, and he's falling down the order again on this lap.
Yeah, couldn't have been a worse start for both of the series champions this year, because remember, in New South Wales, they normally have split grids for overs and unders. They race separately. This is a bit of a unique experience for them this weekend, where both classes are running together, so it's a bit hard to keep track of who is where exactly. Engel is going again. He's just coming past our commentary box at the moment, but he is
21st.
He's 21st at the moment. Yes, he's come across the line at 21st, so not a good run for him.
Last of the people still actually moving, so a real disaster for him.
This is interesting because Andy Sarandis hasn't cleared out like he has done over the first 2 races. He had a good margin over Lockie McBrien this morning. It was near on 9 seconds. He only leads by 1.3 at the moment. Ryan Gordon's giving a good amount of chase to McBrien too. So the top 3 covered by 2.3 seconds. There's not much in it at all, and only about 6 or 7 minutes remaining, and probably another 4 or 5 laps as it sits right now. And 2 more of the Victorians going at it here. Change of position with Porter going through on Paul Javots. These 2 are always garage together. Well, I always say always. They've been garage together since Brett started, which was only this year. And he's learnt a fair bit from Paul over the course of time. There's actually a bit of family rivalry there, because Paul's daughter is actually is the girlfriend to Brett Porter as well. So there's, I guess sometimes there's a bit of some awkward conversations around the dinner table.
It's closing up at the head of the field. McBrien and Gordon catching the race leader Sarandis at this point in time. Is the fuel cap open or something on the BMW just above the wheel arch, or is that simply the wheel arch? I'm not quite sure, but it's certainly not affecting the BMW driver.
Just the wheel arch. So I think the fuel cap's actually on the left-hand side of the BMWs. I've seen them filling a few of them up across the weekend. Now Andy's starting to stretch the legs of the Evo 8 a little bit more. He's got the margin now out to nearly 1.6, so he picked up a couple of tenths on that last lap. Gordon's really started to get the eyes on here. And then we had to be able to look through the record books over the weekend, and we believe he's actually broken it's an unofficial record here at Winton, because they don't sort of tend to track it. But the last time that an under 2 litre car held a track record here was, of course, Jordan Cox in 2018. And we believe that Ryan Gordon went about 2.5 tenths faster than that in yesterday's first race. So that's lowered that mark from was a 131.7. It's down to a 131.45. So that's been a really good, solid weekend for them as the top under 2 litre car.
We're hearing race controller looking at the number 8 BMW of Lenthal, who's had such a strong race weekend. Oh, and that might be why he's sliding around potentially a little bit. And he's now coming under pressure from Agland, who he's miles ahead of a few minutes ago. So not sure what the problem is. Had no transponder in qualifying, started at the back, but has flown through the field throughout the races. Can you see anything, Steve?
I can't see anything obvious here. The only thing I'm wondering if I'm not sure what they're looking at, but Agland was ahead of Lenthal at the start of this race, so there has been a position change at some point in the race so far, and I'm not sure. So Lenthal's just let Agland go there, unless he's nursing some sort of another problem. But there's now a change back to what it was at the beginning of the race, with Agland ahead of Joseph. And then here comes the Corolla of Burks. That car's starting to come on strong at the moment. He was quicker than the both of them last time around. Comfortably quicker. So let's have a look this time around. It was a 33.8 for Agland, 35.4 for Lenthal, and a 33.9 for Burks. So the little Corolla's just starting to come on strong. And then behind them, Porter and Javots both turned some green laps as well, both turning personal bests. And then Tim Robson and Jiwa Chen, who's now made his way into the top 10, unfortunately at the expense of Stephen Engel.
Certainly nursing some kind of issue, isn't he, Lenthal, I reckon?
It's dropped back a fair way now, hasn't he?
Yeah, not looking quite so stable out there. The fight is on for second position. Gordon all over the tail of McBrien. Gordon in a comfortable under 2 litre class lead, but he wants second outright. That BMW is right there. He's right on the tail of that machine, down into turn number 11. Laps are running out. 16 minutes on the clock. We don't have long left. He's got to make it stick and got to. Oh, I thought he was wide. He was very wide, McBrien. That's
costly. That's hurt his run onto the straight. He's missed the apex at turn 12 by some considerable margin there. Just dipped a wheel on the outside of in the pit entry area, and Gordon seizes the opportunity, and the lap traffic has to stay on the racing line and let them through, and Gordon is through. So costly mistake from McBrien. Got a little bit too greedy out of 11. Dropped the left-hand side tyres off the back of the road at turn number 11 and violently kicked it up, and that upset his run onto the front straight. He was substantially slower. Through goes car number 16 to second on the road outright, and is running second for the round overall. Even if he finished third behind Lockie, he still would have been second for the round overall anyway. And points as it sits right now is this man who has taken all of the victories so far this weekend. He is first for outright from Ryan Gordon, and then Lockie McBrien is third overall, just when you put the two categories together. And one thing that Andy was hoping to target this weekend, and if he was going to do it, he would have done it this morning, was to take the long-standing circuit record, outright circuit record for improved production away from his fellow South Australian Chris Brown, who's held it since 2017. He actually broke it unofficially in practice yesterday morning, but of course that does not count. You've got to do it in race conditions, and he got down to a low 1 minute 30 earlier this morning, but unfortunately was about 6 or 10ths of a second or so away from officially breaking that mark as the checkered flag comes out, and he takes 3 from 3 for the weekend from South Australia. Well done to Andy Sarandis. Ryan Gordon home for second overall. Lockie McBrien third. And Burks is all over the rear now of Joseph Lenthal. Late sent down the inside. Turn 12. He gets it done. Does he? No, not quite. The horsepower advantage will kick in here. And Lenthal should...
Going to be close.
Will and does just hold off Burks at the line there. So the Corolla came on strong and just unfortunately ran out of laps and ran out of corners and came oh so close to snatching a 5th place finish.
Yeah, and you apply the 5 seconds to Agland and he still holds on to 4th just from those two. But yeah, great cutback from the little Corolla, but couldn't quite make it stick, couldn't get the whole car in front. And then in the drag race to the line, it was the BMW that just about had enough. Less than a 10th of a second at the line. Lenthal, a thoroughly deserved top 5 finish in that one, ahead of Burke. Burks will be chuffed. Second in under 2 litres. Great performance from him, beating the Honda Civic behind of Porter. So yeah, a good couple of performances from the under 2 litre guys, just outside the top 5.
Absolutely. So I wouldn't call it a dominant win. 3.49 seconds is far from a dominant win, but it is still a comfortable win nonetheless for Andy Sarandis. So he sweeps the weekend and takes the round honours in overs, with Ryan Gordon taking the honours in unders and his second overall when you put the two classes together for the weekend. Ahead of Lockie McBrien and then Nick Agland and Joseph Lenthal, who faded a bit late there and came under 5 from Burks. Porter and Javots, the two hatchback Honda Civics, ahead of Tim Robson in the sedan shelled Civic, and then Jiwa Chen, who cracks a top 10 at the end of that one, so good result for him. And he wasn't that much further ahead of Wayne Twist and Matthew Giantini, who came home pretty much line astern there as well. With Shad Hassan, the only RX-7 to finish the race with this one, with Mark Harwer having dropped out of the race early on. Molesworth in 14th, with Engel, the defending champion, recovering to 15th. He's had a bit of a tardy and an awkward weekend. Ahead of Mark Lamore, Matthew Wildridge, Michael Ricketts, Matthew Lamore in the Volvo wagon, and Max Robson in 20th was the first car, 1 lap down. All the cars coming back to pit lane for New South Wales Improved Production. We'd like to thank them, along with Crisis Transport and Logistics, for very generously allowing Blendline to bring you the live pictures of the first round of the New South Wales Improved Production Series. They'll return to the track at Sydney Motorsport Park in little on a month's time. On the other side of this, it's going to be the final race of the weekend for the Australian Formula 4 Championship.